Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. And also what we've heard this morning was quite empowering, inspiring, but of course also very drastic, as we all know. That's our reason why we do what we do, right? You will see on my slides there will be individuals, because it's always about individuals. Change we can manage as a collective, but made of individuals, human and non-human ones, just like the first slide shows. So what is transformation? I need to repeat this every time I give a talk, so those who've already seen a talk are probably tired of it, but it's important because there's so much misconception on what is transformation. So I will start with what it's not. It's not about paying farmers to stop farming. Very important. It's not about closing down farms. And it's also not about pushing farmers to do something they don't want to. Although, to be honest, sometimes you need to do some strategic stuff to make them know what they actually want. Transformation is about growing food. I want to repeat that 10 times, but then I'm running out of time because it's so important to understand it's changing existing farm systems into plant-based farms. It's showing alternatives, so it's also ideally a place where people can go and look how it's done to inspire yet others. It's giving tangible options to those who've been for years and generations in the same path, never thinking of that they could be part of the solution. It's about the future for everyone, of course. And it's about real system change. So we had this wonderful example from Uganda, where he was also saying it's about not only doing stuff on paper, which I meet a lot. We talk a lot about change and crisis and everything, but we need to go out of the paper thing. We have so much knowledge. We all know the world is in a crisis, and we need to show how we can get out of it. I'm not going to read that because I actually said it already, but just to underline, it's about changing farms that are today exploiting animals for profit into profitable farms that are no longer exploiting animals. And on the way, we are always trying to rescue as many animals as possible. So, how did it all start? It's not about our own farm today, but it's important to talk a tiny bit about it because that's how it started. Sometimes people from Europe or even other countries come to me and say, I want to do this in my country right now. It's just me, can I start? And I think that's the right impulse. That's where we need to start. But it's important to have something like a role model, a place where people can learn. So the great place in our situation was our own farm. Of course, I didn't grow up as a farmer. Maybe not of course, but yes, I didn't. But I had this intrinsic motivation to rescue from very little on as many animals as possible. And I knew at some point I would have a place where I can kind of build a sanctuary. But I also wanted a place where I not only have my little sanctuary situation, but where I could show people who are these animals that we always talk about. In Switzerland, everyone knows a tiger from a zoo, but no one knows a pig. And yet we have more pigs in Switzerland than we have people, for example. So my goal was to bring these two together, pigs and kids, adults, and whoever. So I am a philosoph, and I taught ethics for a long time at universities and schools, but I knew it's not going to get me anywhere close to changing the conception about animals. So the idea was to bring those animals in a place where all these people that I teach come and get to know them. But as a vegan, long-term vegan, always met this, it's such a nice idea, so romantic, but it's not possible on a larger scale argument. I knew I also wanted to use the place we would one day find to grow food and show that farming without killing is possible. But not only without killing, which only is one part of the process, but the whole life before, as one farmer once said, is already not really worth living for animals. So we started off with our own farm, with the School of Ethics, but also with a vegan farm. And the farm that we had was one that were growing food for around maybe 10 families before we took it, because they were producing meat. And then we took it over, and now, efficiency-wise, we are growing food for 150 families. So just to compare, our tiny little farm can also show how efficiency works in this place. And this was when farmers were interested. This was the moment where suddenly they didn't just talk about us, but they also wanted to see. And one day, one really brave dairy farmer came along and said, hang on, if you can do that, what you do here, and you make a living, can I also do that? Because I'm sick of separating calves and moms. I'm so sick of it that I actually want to stop. And not knowing where it would bring me, I said, sure, any farm can do it. That was the start of Transfarmation, which officially started in Switzerland in 2018. But I look to you every once in a while. I just want to mention 6 ways into transformation because, as I said, individuals are important, stories are important, the reasons why are important to me, to understand and also to bring it into your own sphere. So we have Michael, who was a big farmer, a big pig farmer. He had made a whole lot of money. That's the difference to Germany, by the way. In Switzerland, you get really rich when you grow pigs. I say grow pigs because that's what they do. Yeah. Okay, because I have different informations there, but thank you. So sometimes they say, oh, it's not working out financially, but it is working out quite well financially. And he had his employees because he was so rich that he didn't have to go into the pig's place anymore. And one day they were all sick and he had to go himself. And he looked the first mother sow, and who has ever seen a broken mother sow knows exactly what he saw, into the eyes, and it changed. It sounds like a film, but that's what happens every so often. And he saw there's someone behind those eyes. There's someone who wants to live. And he couldn't do it any longer with a high cost that came afterwards because he had so many pigs. And he said, I'd rather kill myself than continue what I'm doing. And we managed to help him. But this is just a story to show you that these individual looking into the eyes moments are also an important part, even though when we talk about science and numbers all the time. Then there's Lucas. Lucas has been looking for solutions and ideas and knew about climate change and all this stuff. But his dad always said, it's not going to work on our farm. You have to continue like this or you have to quit. And then he saw what this first dairy farmer did. And he suddenly saw a solution. And that got him started. Thomas is very different. Again, it's one of those places that some of you know that he called himself hell. It's a pig's place as well, but also cows. And there is a lot of suffering going on. And he said, I'm working in hell, I'm living in hell, that's probably my destiny. And then he found out as well that it's not his destiny. No one, as we like to say today, still has to exploit animals. And his journey started with this knowledge or this kind of information that he also was missing. I'm trying to be faster here. Tamara is the one who contacted me and said, well, I'm producing meat, but there's one ox that I don't want to slaughter. I love him so much. Can you rescue him? Because I know you rescue animals. And I said, I cannot rescue him, but I can change your whole farm. And she hung up saying, that's not possible. Meat is necessary for humans. 2 weeks later, she had reflected upon the idea and made a beautiful farm, a plant-based one. Then there's Leonie. That's Leonie. Also important, very important. She escaped a truck and was on media because she ran away and then she hid in the forest and finally she ended up in our place. And this story also got other farmers thinking again and other people working in the whole supply chain. So Leonie is not just one pig that's been rescued, but also an inspiration for many others. And then there's me. For me, it's about justice on all levels, starting with all the planetary boundaries we've heard about. It's a question of justice there. But of course, for these individuals that I talk about at the moment. And for everyone of those farmers who have changed, it's about almost 200 now, because those are finished. Thank you. Switzerland, just to say that's in Switzerland. That's the ones that are really finished, and then there's a few names up on the slide already that are about to finish this year. It's about every one of them as well. The process of transformation, just to kind of mention it, is a long one sometimes, but it can also be a short one. The shortest one we had was 6 weeks. But it starts already when the people who want to get in touch think about getting in touch, and all the hurdles they see and all the fears they have and all the I don't know what my dad will say situations. And then when they finally contact us, we can talk about all these hurdles. And then we go to the place and we look what is possible on this specific entity, what people are involved, what people could become involved, what kind of supply chain can we open, or is there already one that we can use? The whole analysis. We go into the concept, which takes sometimes weeks because we propose something and they propose something themselves if they have some ideas, and then we kind of find out what is working and what is not working. And then the whole implementation. Very important, as I said in the beginning, farmers get in touch. And each case is unique. That's why it's so hard to put it on a paper and send out and say, this is how you do it, and then you do this, this, and that. Also in Switzerland, the whole system, I will come back to that again, but the whole system is made for animal exploitation. So there's still many hurdles at every corner, even if farmers are willing. Then it's going on step by step. We analyze everything that needs to be analyzed to really change it from the building to the personal situation. And we decide, can some animals stay on that farm and maybe have even an ambassador kind of work to do, or will they go to sanctuaries, or will they just stay until they die and then there will be no new animals? So around 80% of the farms that we have are plant-based completely in the end, and the others have sanctuary parts with animals. I go through that very fast, but of course there's a lot of budgeting and a lot of money questions and everything. You will see that again also later. I just want to mention the main crops. You can probably imagine anything that vegans eat or should eat that are good for whatever Patrick was mentioning before. And also, I forgot your name. All the healthy stuff. It's all possible to grow in Switzerland. What the main challenges are, we heard of that as well, is for me at the moment it's the government, because many lobbyists are in the government, so that's really tricky. The subsidies go in the completely wrong direction. Of course, we have people discussing. They're trying to implement for the new subsidy system that's coming to 2030. to give some impulses there, so let's hope. But that, of course, is a burden or a hurdle, whatever, that we have to carry and find ways around. The whole Heiligtag image, as cute as it sounds, is actually quite toxic, because we pretend in Switzerland everything is so beautiful and all the cows are so happy, and people want to believe that, and people really buy stuff with a beautiful picture of a cow because they find the cow so cute. And it's so hard to break through and say, go into that barn once or see how they really live and then rethink what you consume. So there needs to be a lot of educational work here. The true costs, of course, are hidden completely. And that's also Switzerland specific. The prices are quite high. So if we grow lupines, we had it on the other slide, and someone buys it to make vegan cheese, that person needs to be ethically motivated, because it's way more expensive than if you just import it. So something to work on as well. But luckily, we have some companies who really like this change and support transformation farms and buy specifically all these beans or other products from these farms. But of course, on the long run, we need programs there that kind of show these costs and change these costs, or then close Switzerland, which we don't want. Despite all these boundaries or difficulties, I want to show you a few, for me, boring slides, but still interesting. To not go into all of these, but you can see this used to be an egg farm. Now they do different kinds of agriculture, permaculture, direct marketing. They also do a little bit of sponsorship because they kept some animals, events, and direct marketing. You can see in the next slide a bit clearer. For me, the most important thing is, in the end, they have the same income. Because people always ask, so how do they earn their money? And I wonder sometimes, why do these questions still come? Because what do you vegans eat? Someone needs to produce it, and it's always initially a farm. Yeah. You can see it's the same farm. You just see it's a little bit more diverse, although here not so much. But if you look at the next example, the dairy farm, who did also some pig fattening, is now invested in different kinds of agriculture. There you don't split into several parts because it's every year you have different crops. The pig farming, of course, went down, and the oat milk went up, for example. Yeah, I am not allowed to use that word, but I still do. Yes, I will know. We can talk about it in the question section. You can see here also it looks much nicer because I used not so reddish colors. The pig farm. Here we have the most impressive, for me, change, because there was only pigs, nothing else. That's often the case in Switzerland, at least for pigs. And now they do agricultural stuff of all kinds. They do mushrooms, they do vegetables, they do new kinds of hay. They gained some land back, which they didn't have anymore. And they even started with berries and fruit. So also here, the income, one of the rescued one from that farm, is at least the same, because sometimes they actually would need more, and then we also try to help them gain more so they can survive. Here, as I mentioned also in the beginning, how to implement it on a larger scale. I mean, politics are asked. People who tend to go into politics, please always talk about this. But also the information with farmers, with people in the supply chain everywhere. It is possible. Today, no one needs to exploit animals anymore. So important to share everywhere, like from the beginning with the kids. into adulthood all the time. Make it a conversation that happens at least once a day. Then, of course, there needs to be support. We are talking about the transitioning fund in Switzerland. Fund, why I'm speaking French, because I needed to speak French last week so much. It's a funding that comes partly from the government, but partly also from foundations to help these transitions to go easy. At the moment, it is only foundations who fund this transitioning. And then, of course, the whole supply chain and all sectors and advertising. There's a lot of advertising in Switzerland. Billions go into advertising from your taxes. That also would need to change to make it easier. But if they don't do it, we continue anyway, because then in the end, it's farmers bottom up who change the whole system. This we all had in previous talks, so I'm not going to go into that. But it's a lot about being part of the solution. Because in Switzerland, farmers always feel they are pushed in the corner of, we are the problem. Yes, they are, but they can be the solution. So that's empowering. That's what they like. And that's where they feel also worth something. And as much as it is about investment and money, it's about a future worth living, right? It's not even a question, do we want to transform? It's a question, when does everybody change and how do we do it? And it is, for me, it's about compassion for ourselves, for the animals, for other people, for people in other countries. So we should never forget that. Also when we talk about numbers and all this science that has always been shown at every conference everywhere, go back to the individual is so important. And the true costs that we pay at the moment can never be as low as we would have it if we would change. That's also something tricky to think about, but if people realize, then suddenly everything is possible. And there the question comes, what if we just do it? That's how I stop. My favorite farmer at the moment.
Thank you, Sarah. You're such an inspiration and a great role model.